Octo browser is the tool people bring up the moment the talk turns to running a real team of profiles, or someone repeats the phrase kernel-level fingerprint spoofing like it settles the argument. It tends to get either glowing agency praise or a suspicious shrug, rarely a straight read. So let me give you the honest version. Today I want to look at Octo specifically, what it actually is, where its team features and lower-level fingerprint approach earn a place, and where the marketing runs well ahead of what it really does. No undetectable promises, no claim that any browser keeps your account safe, just a plain read from someone who runs these setups for real. Really does. Quick note on where this comes from before I start. I run real proxy and cloud phone farms, and I test these browsers hands on the way multi-accounters actually use them, with real proxies attached and every profile read through a public checker. Any verdict I give here is tied to what Octo did in that testing, not to a commission and not to the fantasy that a browser can stop bans, because none of them can. What a tool controls is one half of the identity, the device half, and I will be clear about where that half ends and your own work begins. That can't stand plain. Octo browser is a Chromium-based anti-detect browser built around running many separate profiles, each with its own fingerprint, its own cookies, and its own proxy. It comes from a team that clearly aimed the product at agencies and media buyers rather than lone tinkerers, and that shows in how polished and collaborative it feels. Profiles live in the cloud by default, so a whole team can share them, and the interface leans toward organizing hundreds of accounts cleanly rather than hand-tuning a single one. It is a tool built for scale and for groups. The headline claim, the one that shows up in every thread, is that Octo substitutes fingerprint values down at the browser core rather than by injecting JavaScript over the top. And there is a real idea underneath that phrase worth understanding. A lot of the cheaper tools change your canvas or your WebGL reading by running a little script that intercepts the call and hands back a fake answer, and a sharp detector can sometimes notice the seam where that script sits, the fact that a value is being rewritten in front of it. Changing the value lower down, before the page ever asks, is meant to leave no such seam. Here is the honest caveat on that, because kernel level is also just a marketing phrase until a checker says otherwise. What actually matters is never the mechanism they name in the brochure. It is whether the result reads coherent and holds still when a site reads it twice. Substituting at a lower level does genuinely remove one class of tell, the injection seam, and that is a real point in Octo's favor. But it does nothing about your proxy, nothing about your behavior, and it does not make a profile invisible. Because closing one gap is not the same as closing all of them on engines. Octo is Chromium only, a genuine trade-off to weigh. Every profile it makes is some flavor of Chrome, which is fine because Chrome is what most of the world runs, so you blend into the biggest crowd there is. But you do not get the Firefox profiles or the mobile emulation a tool like Camleo offers, and Firefox and mobile fingerprints are simply rarer in detection data. If your accounts need to look like phones, Octo is not your tool. If they live on desktop Chrome, Chromium only costs you nothing. Now the part that decides it for a lot of people, the price. Octo does not hand you a lasting free tier the way Gologin and AdsPower do. There is a limited trial and then paid plans, priced mostly by how many profiles you keep and how many team seats you need. It sits in the mid to premium band, aimed at operators and teams already making money who want the collaboration tools, not a beginner poking around for free. Whether it is worth the money comes down to one question: whether you actually need the team features and the polish you are paying the premium for. On to fingerprints, which is what people actually buy these tools for. Octo generates coherent profiles and lets you adjust the usual surfaces, the canvas, the WebGL renderer, the fonts, the time zones, the whole set. As with every tool I test, the point is never that it can change those values. They all can. It is whether the values agree with one another and stay stable when a site reads them a second time. So I do not trust the settings panel or the kernel level headline. I read the result through a checker every time, across more than one profile on more than one proxy. Here is what my testing actually showed, because a verdict has to be grounded in the test and not the sales page. I spun up 3 profiles, attached a separate residential proxy to each one in a different country, and ran all 3 through creepJAs and a couple of verdict-style checkers. All 3 came back internally consistent. The canvas and the WebGL stories matched the device each profile claimed. The time zone and locale lined up with each proxy's exit once I set them, and the values held stable across reloads rather than flickering between reads. with each proxy configured correctly. No real IP leaked through a WebTech path. That is a strong result, and I want to be careful about how you read it. It is not proof that Octo makes anything undetectable, and it is not a promise that your account survive, because a clean fingerprint at one moment is the floor you expect at this price, not a guarantee about tomorrow. What the test tells you is narrow and useful, that the tool produces coherent, stable profiles when you feed it a matching proxy, and that the lower level substitution left no obvious seam a common checker could catch. Everything after that clean read is still on you. Here is the part the affiliate reviews skip, and it is true no matter which plan you buy. Octo does not save a bad proxy, and it cannot. Every profile rides on its own proxy, and that proxy is half of whether the account survives. The kernel level fingerprint work is real, but it sits on the device half of the identity, and the network half, the sourcing, the geographic matching, the reputation of the IP, is still on you. At volume, the proxy bill routinely dwarfs the subscription, and a flawless fingerprint on a burned data center IP is still a flag waiting to happen. Where Octo genuinely pulls ahead is the team side, and this is the real reason agencies reach for it. You get tag-based organizing for hundreds of profiles, granular roles and permissions, and the ability to hand a profile from one team member to another without dragging the cookies through a risky export. For a media buying crew running many accounts across many people, that transfer feature alone removes a whole category of mistakes, and the shared cloud workspace keeps everyone on the same profiles rather than scattered local copies that quietly drift apart. The caution on that is the same one I give everywhere, and it matters more the bigger the team gets. Every extra person who can open a profile is another way its fingerprint and its behavior can drift, another set of hands that might launch it from the wrong network or at the wrong hour. The collaboration tools make sharing smooth, which is exactly why the discipline has to come from your process rather than the software. Treat shared access as a risk you manage deliberately, not a convenience you stop thinking about. There is a trade-off hiding in that cloud-first design worth naming plainly. Because Octo stores profiles on its own servers by default, your cookies and your sessions live on a vendor's infrastructure rather than only on your own disk. For a team that needs sync and shared access, that is the whole point and a genuine convenience. But if you want your account data sitting only on hardware you control, the way a more local tool keeps it, that cloud default is a real consideration worth deciding on purpose rather than falling into by accident. For the more technical crowd, Octo does support automations. It exposes a local API and works with the usual drivers, Selenium, Puppeteer, and Playwright, so you can create and drive profiles programmatically instead of clicking through the dashboard by hand. It is not marketed toward developers as a tool-built API first, but the hooks are there and they work. So if you script your workflows, you are not locked out. Just do not pick Octo for the API alone when its real center of gravity is the team side. A tool you live in all day is judged on its interface, and this is where Octo is comfortable. The dashboard is polished and modern. The onboarding is gentler than the leaner and more technical tools, and organizing a large stable of profiles with tags and folders feels genuinely designed rather than bolted on. A beginner lands here more softly than in a developer-leaning tool, and a team gets a shared surface that does not fight them. If a clean collaborative interface matters to how you work, Octo is one of the stronger options in the category. Now the direct warning, the same one I give for every tool here. Octo's kernel-level phrase gets weaponized in the marketing, framed as if substituting fingerprints at a lower level made accounts untouchable. Tune that out. Lower-level work removes one specific class of tell, which is worth something, but it is not immunity. No browser is undetectable, and any review that promises your accounts will never get banned is selling you something, usually an affiliate link. Judge Octo on the concrete things, the coherent profiles, the team tools, and the interface, and ignore the outcome promises entirely. So where does Octo fit best? It fits agencies and media buying teams that need to share hundreds of profiles cleanly, hand accounts between people safely, and organize everything with tags and roles. It fits operators who want a polished Chromium tool and value collaboration over lone tinkering. Where it fits less well is just as clear. If you need mobile or Firefox profiles, if you want your data stored only locally, or if you are a beginner hunting a free tier, other tools line up better, and there is no shame in picking the one that matches how you work. Be clear-eyed about the ceiling, because this is where honesty matters most. Octo manages the device half of your identity well, And the theme features and the lower level substitution are real advantages you can feel in daily use. But it does not control your proxy. It does not control your behavior once you are logged in. And it can do nothing about how a platform's detection shifts over the weeks and months you run an account. It reduces one class of problem and leaves the rest, the proxy, the pacing, the disciplines, squarely with you, and every tool in this category shares that ceiling. If you want to judge it for yourself, and you really should before you pay, the test is quick and concrete. Take the trial, create 3 profiles, attach a real residential proxy to each in a different country, and run all 3 through Crypt.js and the verdict style checker while you look the proxies up separately for reputation and location. Confirm the device story and the network story agree on every one, that the values hold stable across reloads, and that nothing leaks through RealTip. I test these browsers on real multi-account setups, so the full written review with the tested results and the picks I actually trust is at antidetectbrowser.org, with no undetectable promises anywhere. If this gave you a straighter read than the affiliate crowd, subscribe for more honest, tested anti-detect browser reviews, and I will see you in the next one.